Hello and welcome to Metra Home Theater Tech Tips. It's a brand new year and we're getting started full of energy, vitality, and questions. I'm Brent.
I'm Adam.
And welcome aboard. And first off, we would like to say thank you to those of you that signed in way early today. At 30 minutes, we had people waiting for the show, which makes us very excited. And Adam took a really good call this week that I would like him to share with us.
So first off, again, this is kind of a shout out to everybody who checks on our videos and whatnot, and we really, really appreciate it. And apparently one of our viewers also appreciated it so much, he called us up and asked us if there was a way to donate.
Yeah, he wanted to know if we had a donate button.
Yeah, so again, thank you so much for the thought. It's amazing. We really appreciate that, and it really lets us know that we're doing good things out here. Best way you can help us out, of course, is just think of our product next time you're going to go and do something.
I, however, encouraged a buy us lunch button.
Yes, you did. So, which we are not going to be doing a buy us lunch button. No. So, Brent, what are we talking about today?
Well, today is HDMI troubleshooting, and we've talked about this actually multiple times in the past, but a lot's going on, and we take a lot of calls on a regular basis. Honestly, most of them are more toward the video surveillance and networking side, which fortunately is you. Thank you.
Yes. Yep. Lewis and
Stuart.
Lewis, they take care of that a lot.
We still get enough of the HDMI questions that it's something we do need to go over. Again.
Yeah. Now, and really, this is kind of becoming a nice yearly thing for us. Maybe once a year we'll go through and just go again over just the troubleshooting process and basics and how to take care of that. And honestly, we'll probably go ahead and do an HDMI troubleshooting today. And maybe at another point we'll do just a general troubleshooting, and we'll probably do a surveillance troubleshooting because there's things like that do come up. Yeah. So. And
however, before we get deep into it, our usual, please like us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I myself am on Remote Central and installers IP.org. And Adam and I will both be out of the office next week, but we got a special episode that's actually pretty darn cool that we're both very excited about.
Yes, we are. So next week we are going to be doing a pre-recorded episode, but still check in with us because we are going to be launching it at the normal Wednesday at 3 p.m. time. It's going to be an episode where we actually have a chance to talk to David Mayer from Cedia, who, if you all remember from last week, he actually helped us out quite a bit as to what is HDR. And he is an absolute wealth of knowledge, and luckily on his busy schedule, even during this the everything going on this year and last year, let's hope to God it doesn't continue on. Now, luckily he had some opening in his schedule to go ahead and do that, so we're going to record that for you and put it out there next Wednesday.
There is a lot in there to get. It will be a tad bit more technical, I think, than typically our broadcasts are, but I think there's a lot to grasp in this, so please come back next week at 3 p.m. and join us.
So, okay, so, Brent, as always, everybody, thank you for checking in. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Hit that little bell notification button to let you know when we do go live, which, of course, as we've been saying, is every Wednesday at 3 p.m. on Eastern Time. And, of course, if you have any questions about what we're talking about today, make sure you put it over in the chat section over here. Or if you are coming in after the fact and you'd like to ask a question or leave some information, you can put it down. Or careful. Put it down in the comment section down below. As always, you can call us on our tech support line, which is 386-492-8584, or you can email us at adamr@metrahometheater.com or
brentam@metrahometheater.com. Now, in the upcoming month, you will see a change. We will cease to be Metra Home Theater Group, and we will become Metra AV.
Right.
Now, the reason for this is we are not really changing who we are. We're just expanding what we're capable of doing and supporting.
So that's going to be a lengthy process. It's going to take us a little bit of time. So you'll start seeing some changes. So let's go ahead and get into what we're talking about today. Okay. So, Brent.
Adam.
Step one. My HDMI. Here, hold on a second. Even better.
You got a PowerPoint?
This one I do have. Here we go. My HDMI doesn't work.
Okay.
What now?
Wait. All HDMI cables are the same.
Copper's copper, right?
Copper, it just works or it doesn't work.
Yeah, come on. I mean, it's digital, right? I mean, it's just ones and zeros.
Digital.
We're past the days of needing to worry about, the analog signal and
just like Morgan Fairchild. I know personally.
So Brent, step one.
Well, the first thing we need to do is honestly determine where it's not working.
Right.
So typically what we do in a situation like this, hi, Metra Home Theater Tech Support. Oh, your HDMI cable's not working. Okay, Mr. Customer, let's do a couple of things. Are you direct connected? Are you going through a matrix? Are you going through an AVR? Are you going through a splitter? Tell me about your system.
Yep.
Now, even as an integrator, take a moment to write down your chain of custody.
Yeah.
The chain of events. So what do we have? Do we have, okay, we got a source, we got a cable, we got an AVR, or maybe a matrix, or maybe a splitter.
Yep.
All of this has to be factored in because my philosophy is start at the end and come back.
So you start at the display and work your way backwards?
I start at the display because, hey, I want to make sure the inputs are working on the panel.
Yeah.
We've been down this road.
Yep.
We have been down this road.
Yes, we have. Yeah, we have that Sony. And we've now upgraded. We went ahead and picked up one of the LG TVs. Fantastic TV. I'm very happy with it.
By the way, because what does it support?
Because it supports 120 4K. Which unfortunately the last TV that we had in here that will not be named
did not.
Did not, unfortunately. So, but we have this one in here now. So, but yeah, the Sony TV that we had, unfortunately, the HDMI inputs
died on it.
All of them died on it.
But
and
it doesn't always happen that way. It could be a single input dying.
Yep.
As you and I have discussed in multiple of our issues over the past year, cable systems, cable boxes can send too much voltage to a display or a device and burn out a port. You plug in another one and it works.
Yep.
Till it doesn't.
And yeah, for
then you move to another one.
So
the very first thing we have to determine is the display input working? Because if it's not, everything else you do is a waste of time and doesn't take you anywhere.
Right.
So typically how you do this is you take the cable going from whatever you've got to the display and you disconnect it from whatever's there, the splitter, the matrix, the switch, AVR, whatever, and plug it directly in a source.
Yep.
That's the most obvious place to start and probably the easiest.
I'd even go a step even further back. Even I would say go ahead and just unplug it from the input that it's plugged into, and
on
just
the TV.
Yep, on the TV, and just shift it over to another one.
The only reason I start at the other end is, let's be honest, most people don't have this ability.
This is true. This is true.
And it's also not uncommon when you get this call, you're out doing something else, and your customer calls, and you're alone. So with TVs now being 65, 75, 85,
you're
86.
You're not taking it down by yourself, and 99, you're not going to ask your client to help you do that.
Right. So what we have to do is look at what can be done realistically in the field.
Yeah.
So start with just a straight cable run from the source to the display.
Yep.
Now, one of the things you and I recommended fairly early on in our broadcast is your own source.
Yes.
Whether it is, and typically we use...
We like this.
Yeah.
This is it's just a Mi box.
Mi box, my box.
My box. It's MI. And just do a Google search for MI box. It's a great little piece. It does 4K 60.
They're
it's a full
available on
18 gig.
Amazon.
For relatively
$60
cheap,
or something like
I think
that.
they're even cheaper than that right now. The nice thing about these is that they have an HDMI output. This does have an optical output. It doesn't
for
have,
audio. It's an ST.
So it's that 3.5 where it's down at the inside of that. But it also has an analog audio output as well. So that does give you that ability to troubleshoot other items like that. But the HDMI output's a full 18 gig. You can get content put onto either it directly, because it does have internal storage, or get a little USB stick, download some stuff from
4kmedia.org.
Yep. Or my favorite is the Big Buck Bunny, which I linked to that before, and that's one of the things that I forget exactly when I linked to it, but I'll make sure it's down in the description for this video.
Because it offers many resolutions.
Yeah, have your own source. Now, another really good one is honestly the Fox and Hound from Meridio.
Yes.
They have a great piece. It's actually, don't tell anybody, but it's actually a piece that we use to test things here. So if
they
you
are
have,
the competitors.
Yeah, right. If you have something, if you have the ability to pick up a Fox and Hound kit, it's a great piece. It has all the different things to test the cabling. It actually has a cable test feature on its own, but it also
It's a generator.
It's a generator, so it'll generate different resolutions and different levels, and you can do 4K 60, 4K 30, 1080p, 720p, 1080i.
Check audio, check
480.
HDCP, generate it.
Yep, test all the other pieces for that.
However, if you don't have the money for that,
because it is expensive, it is fairly expensive.
this is a good answer. That along with a dad.
And now see, here's the hard part about the DAD is unfortunately we don't produce it anymore.
No, but I think we still have them in stock.
I'd have to check with that. You contact your sales rep and find out if we still have them in stock.
Because it monitors 5-volt hot plug, EDID, and HDCP and clock.
So with the DAD, with the source device and the DAD, the nice thing about it is it does have the LED information that'll tell you, are you getting clock, are you getting the data, are you getting 5-volt positive, and are you getting hot plug? And so that is a good thing to know, going forward with that. Now, that combined with your own source is a really good way to kind of track and see what's going on. Other devices like that Meridio piece, they also have the ability to track all of that through that as well.
If you have the analyzer.
Correct.
Because that's a two-piece system.
It's a two-piece system for their old 6G and 6A. Now the Fox and Hound comes as a kit.
Right, but it's still, you need both pieces. So you can't track something. You can generate and see if there's a picture.
Right.
But we can't see, is there a hot plug coming back, things like that. But, so, again, step one, find out, is your display working?
Yeah.
Have a source. Do not bank on whatever's on the job site working correctly.
By the way, that the recommendation for the Fox and Hound, that came from the experts. Thanks, guys. I see your comment in here. Appreciate that.
So know that you can test the system. Again, inexpensive, fits in your toolbox, put some content on it.
Yeah.
Or a laptop.
A laptop. Really simple, really straightforward. Most laptops that you pick up nowadays, especially if you're doing automation programming, you'll have a laptop with you. And if you are doing anything that has anything to do with the network at all, you should have a laptop with you.
Absolutely, and that will be covered in the next version of tech support.
Yeah, so definitely take a look at that. Oh, Jesse is saying we do have the DAD in stock. Fantastic. So
thank you, Miss Crab.
Yeah, thank you, Miss Crab. So everybody, definitely check out the DAD. It's a great piece. It'll give you that feedback information.
In fact, we were actually using it today.
Now, there's some caveats that have to go. I know where you're going with this, but yes.
What we wanted to find out is what happens on an Xbox Series X when you engage it.
Right.
We've tried a number of our devices with it just to see what would happen. And when you first turn on the Xbox Series X, 5-volt hot plug happens between your source and your display.
Yep.
And then there's a whole lot of EDID happening. I mean, those lights were going crazy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then none, which tells us a tremendous amount.
Yep.
Once it establishes what it's doing, it does not have to reestablish until power or input is changed.
So I have a theory about that because I do, because it also comes down to the content that you're currently viewing. When it comes to HDCP, which that's a great episode. Honestly, we did an episode, the episode series on HDR. I think we need to do an episode series on HDCP and exactly what it is and why it causes so much trouble, which will more than likely be coming up. But when it comes to the HDCP, it's the content that requires it.
Yes, it is. It's not the display or the hardware.
Or the source device. It's the source content. So we were playing a game, I think it was Dirt 5.
Dirt 5.
And Dirt 5 may not have an HDCP requirement.
But another game might.
Or if we're watching Netflix or a Blu-ray disc or something else, there may be a requirement.
A good example of that is cable boxes in DirecTV.
Right.
DirecTV, for the longest time, when you first powered up a system, all what you saw was 5-volt hot plug and a little bit of activity and then never again, unless power went off.
Right.
That, however, has changed. It started with pay-per-view and now has worked its way down to a lot of the channels where they are checking for HDCP on a more regular basis.
Yep. And what we mean by that, of course, is that when it first boots up, EDID, of course, is the first thing that happens because it needs to find out what type of display are you, what type of AVR is in line, what type of whatever, what type of whatever, what type of whatever. And then at that point, then HDCP comes in and starts doing its part, gets the HDCP handshake, and then what will happen a lot of times with HDCP is that it continues to check periodically.
Typically every 3 to 5 seconds.
Right.
Typically. Now, it is possible, for example, with the Xbox Series X, we put our EDID blocking tool on it because we were curious after what we saw in here.
Yeah.
What would happen?
Yeah.
Well, it's quite interesting because I've never seen what happened before.
Right.
It gave us a picture, which surprised me, honestly.
Yep.
Because normally if there's no EDID or hot plug, or HDCP, there's nothing.
Yep.
It gave us a picture, but it was horrible.
It was a 480p picture.
Barely.
On an Xbox Series X, which anybody who's messing with that right now, of course, knows that the big thing about the Xbox Series X is 4K 120.
And we had been playing 4K 120, and then suddenly we got 480p. It's like,
yeah.
wow.
So
Typically, that is not the case.
Right.
Typically, you get nothing.
Right. Now, of course, with the Xbox, it is a little bit more advanced than a lot of other types of devices, and it does have a feature on it to where if you're having problems with the video output,
into safe mode.
It goes into safe mode, and so you can actually force your Xbox to go into safe mode by holding down, I believe it's the eject button and the power button when you first turn it on, which resets the video settings down to 480p. Because the thought is that maybe you connected it to a TV and set something at a super high resolution that it's not actually capable of.
So it gives you a place to start again.
Exactly. So my thought is that when you put something like an EDID blocker on there, what's happening is that it's basically saying, I'm not seeing EDID, maybe they can't see an image, let me go ahead and dumb it down really quick so they can at least see something.
Yeah, so it's at least it's outputting something so you can get into the settings.
Right.
That is an awesome feature. It'd be nice if more products did.
That would be really nice. So here's all of that to say, what does that have to do with troubleshooting? Well, just that. If you turn on your system with an Xbox Series X and you see a picture and it looks absolutely terrible, because at that point it's dropped down to a 480p, and most TVs nowadays have an option on them where if you were to go into, you hit a certain button and it will come up with an option for info. Or if you switch from one input back to that input
give you
before,
that info screen?
It'll tell you what resolution you are set to. Let's see, I'm going to back out of that real quick. It'll tell you what resolution the content is currently set to. And at that point, that'll tell you, hey, wait a minute, it's set to 480p, something's wrong. And usually in that point, now that we know what's happening with the Xbox Series X output,
it actually gives us a lot more strength answering calls.
Exactly. So we can say, hey, is it 480p? Yeah, there's probably something wrong with EDID. Put a junior on there.
Now, the nice thing about the DAD with the LEDs on it, it fully functions in the 4K environment as we know it today.
Yep.
So you can put it in a job, look at your 5-volt, look at your hot plug, which have to happen.
Yep.
We covered that 4 weeks ago, I think.
Yes.
So you've got to have those voltage transactions. No data, just straight voltage.
Yep.
And then the who are you, what are you, what's your resolution.
Exactly.
And secret security handshake have to happen.
Right.
And you can track that with the DAD.
Yep.
So this is a wonderful tool to have in your kit.
Yep.
Now, it is also a repair tool. In fact, it's our original repair tool. However, what it does, which is capacitive stripping to give you a rise time correct.
Yep.
The JR3 does for a lot less money.
Yep.
And it's a lot smaller and doesn't require a jumper cable.
Give them a top-down shot, and you can kind of see it there. So we went from, where you got? There you go. We went from the DAD, which was of course a fairly large size box on that, from that there, down to that piece there. So
and it's in line, which is very nice.
Great size difference on that, and of course everything's in line.
That has been still is our standard troubleshooting tool.
Yep.
Because the vast majority of problems you guys see are no audio. We got that call this morning.
Yes, we did.
Long time to sync between sources.
Yep.
Got that call this week.
Yep.
Mode out of range, frequency out of range,
Yep.
or HDCP not supported.
Right.
Those problems traditionally come down to a rise time issue.
Yep.
Now, rise time is simply, when you're looking at data, ones and zeros, the infamous ones and zeros, and
Right.
it's just ones and zeros. How long it takes to transition from a 0 to a 1 or 1 to a 0 is called the rise time.
Yep.
The rise time is very critical because when that gets off, you miss the bus.
Yep.
And when the bus gets missed, there ain't no ride.
Nope.
No picture, no sound. Sound is the first thing to fail on purpose.
Yeah.
It is the dashboard idiot light. Literally, that's its intent. When you have no audio, that is HDMI's intent for you to know there's a problem.
Yep. Yep.
So it's a good place to start. So step number 1, troubleshooting. Make sure your your display's input is working.
Yeah.
Have a source that you know functions.
Yes.
Do not rely on your customers' devices.
Yep.
Have one with you. This is cheap, easy, and it's tiny.
And it needs to be something that periodically you check your for your own equipment.
Absolutely.
This is something that it's the same thing when it comes to, if you know anybody who's an avid knife owner who owns knives, they'll tell you that the first thing about my knife safety is making sure your knife is sharp. And the idea with that.
Why am I suddenly nervous?
I know, right? The idea with that, of course, is that a dull knife, you're going to be pushing harder, which means something's going to slip and you're going to hurt something. The same thing when it comes to your source devices and everything else. Make sure that it is a good working device. Otherwise, you're going to get out to the job site and realize that you're going to be taking down a different path, thinking that something else is wrong, and you're just wasting time.
Yeah, and actually on that note, little bit off topic, but not. Let's make a quick tool talk here. On your category crimping tool, make sure your compression blades are new. Because if your tool is dull and out of date, you're not making a good connection by pushing those blades into the wire. And when that happens, you don't get good data. And when you don't get good data, you get fails.
So it's not enough to just say, take it out of the toolbox and go like this a couple times. Honestly, it's one of those things where actually look at it. Actually take some time, take a look at it, and we'll flip over here real quick and do a top-down shot so you can see what I mean.
Did not mean to go there, but this is something that's got to get done.
Yeah, so let's see if you can see it here. If you watch, is it coming in? Maybe not, maybe. It's going to be really hard for you all to see. But inside, of course, when you put the RJ45 inside of the tool, the teeth that come through and actually push the teeth of the RJ45 termination into the wire, the die that does that, over time, if you're not careful, the plastic that actually is the head of the termination will break off in tiny little pieces and actually fit down inside there and can cause it not to get
basically you get a bald tire effect where the ridges are not the same all the way across, so the blades do not fully insert into the wire.
Also, I can say from personal experience, make sure you don't get sand in your toolbox because the sand actually gets down inside those and ruins them as well. Personal experience with that. So we live in Florida. Sand's everywhere. It's coarse, it's gritty, it gets into everything.
Okay, so back to troubleshooting 101. Please have a source. Make sure it's with you. Keep it in your computer bag, your iPad bag, or your tablet bag.
Michael, it is the box. The logo is there. You can see it kind of shining a little bit. Great little piece, and I think
we get them on Amazon.
Yeah, you just pick them up on Amazon. This is the Mi box. Again, great little piece for your own little. It's not portable, so you do have to have power plug of some kind.
USB. It's 5 volts, I think. But I mean, it comes with everything, the remote and all the parts and pieces you need. Put some content on it, or put some content on a USB stick, and we do recommend you have multiple resolutions of content. Because you want to check the system. It is possible to have a TV that is burnt out on a specific resolution. Been there, done that one. So you want to check these things.
So Miss Crab has actually put a note in here as well. She says she will honor a 10% discount on any of our products that are being discussed today on our show.
Wow, we need to spread that part number list out.
They have to refer to show 10%, so that's going to be the discount for that. So Brent, let's really quickly read everything that we have in our catalog for everybody.
So the dad, guys, from day one we've been preaching the dad. The first tool we created, and it still works great, and it will do any of your 4K requirements up to and including 4K, HDR, 10-bit color. So anything that's currently out there, you guys are good to go on that. You don't leave it on the job, you use it for testing. If it solves the problem, you put in either the JR3 or the AIO2, because at that point you're probably using the additional feature sets that the AI2 comes with, which we'll cover a little further into the broadcast. So make sure the inputs are working on the TV, step number one. The TV's working. Obviously the cable at this point is working.
Well, no, hold on a second. Hold on. Is the TV turned on, Brent? Is it plugged into power?
Don't laugh about that one.
That is step 0.5.
Don't laugh about that one. Because particularly if there's an automation system involved, that can happen. We have both been down that road.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. Actually, you and I on the same job, actually. I've been through the same thing on that. So I apologize. Here you go. Here you go. Okay. Let's do this. Should we've got an example from one of the viewers. Do we want to do the example now, or do we want to wait till the end?
Give me the example.
Okay. All right. So this comes in from the experts. He says audio cuts in and out. You unplug the HDMI cable and it doesn't do it again while you are on this site. How do you troubleshoot it?
Oh, well, first off, we typically know what that problem is.
You ask the client if you can stay over for a couple days until it happens again.
And by the way, you want refrigerator rights, theater rights, and preferably bathroom rights.
Yes.
Because if you got the refrigerator, well, you're going to need the bathroom.
Just making sure.
Okay, so that one actually tells you a tremendous amount right there about the problem.
Okay.
What that's telling you is you are having a capacitive loading problem over time. Now, the thing about capacitive loading And by the way, that's what the DAD, the JR3, the AIO, the GA1, the GA2, all repairs. Capacitive loading is a gradual buildup of capacitance on the data bus. And as it builds up, can you give me a top down?
I sure can. And actually, while you're doing that, go ahead and finish that. There you go.
Okay, this is the theoretical one. This is our goal.
Yep.
Now, simply, this is a high and on, a yin to your yang, whatever you want to call it in your world, but it's a high.
Yep.
It's a 1. Now, the problem is, how long does it take to get from here to here? That is what this is all about. Now, when you first plug the system in and you turn it on, this rise time's pretty good. We're gonna assume you're at about 275 nanoseconds.
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 Really quick.
Very fast.
Yep.
Nanoseconds.
Yes.
Now, over time, what will happen is, and this can be caused because of thermal conditions, meaning it's warm in the room, bad solder joints on your cable, bad circuit board design, your cable box sitting right on top of your AVR creating thermal issues. Over time, that rise time will start to get longer and longer. Now, there's a clock inside of this data, just like a cog in a gear or tooth in a gear. That gear is spinning, that chain has to line up. If one of those gears is not centered correctly, one of those teeth, or a link in the chain is exceptionally long or too short, it will start to skip. And when that happens, the chain jumps the sprocket. The same thing happens here. And remember, audio is designed to be the fail indicator. So what you do is your audio drops out, you send a tech out on the job, he looks at it, like, I don't know. He pulls the cable out, looks at the cable, says, hey, it looks good to me, plugs it back in, and by golly, it works. He's a genius. He tells your customer, Mr. Customer, you're good to go. He goes out the door. And a week or 2 or a month or sometimes 3 months later, you get the call again. The solution to that is pretty simple. It is still the JR3. Because what the JR3 does is strip capacitive loading off the data bus to return it to a very fast and solid swing before the clock hits, which is between 700 and 1,000 nanoseconds.
So a really good way of thinking about capacitive loading is if you have, in a situation, I hit the wrong button there. There we go. So let's say, let's use that bus, that miss the bus analogy, okay? Mm-hmm. Every day, let's pretend every clock point is, waking up in the morning and catching your bus. Well, over time, let's say every day you add on one more piece from your own house that you're going to carry with you onto the bus. Well, eventually, that stuff is going to weigh you down to where it's going to take you longer and longer and longer and longer to catch that bus.
And now you're late.
And now you're late and you miss the bus. And that's the idea behind capacitive loading. Now,
right, because what you want is for the rise time to be faster than the minimum requirement.
Yes.
Now, as long as you're within the requirement, it should function. But what happens is over time you will exceed that requirement. And the system fails as an indicator that you're not communicating. So that is the most common problem we see.
Yes, it is.
Now, the second most common problem we see now, and this is fairly new in the last year, honestly, is cable boxes. It works great on Monday. You go to bed, you wake up Tuesday morning, you turn everything on, and no picture.
Now, hold that thought. The code this week, guys, the show 10%, that is good until the end of the week. So make sure you contact your rep, place the order for anything that we're talking about today, and we'll make sure that goes up on the screen for you as well before the end of the day.
And what we're talking about is the JR3.
Yep, this is the JR3 so far.
The HDM DAD, which is still available. And the HDM AIO2. All of these are excellent troubleshooting devices.
Yes.
And
so
we're going to get to the AIO2 now.
Okay, so with cable boxes, now of course, here's my question. Is this problem, and again, this is things that you should be asking when a problem comes up. Your client calls you and says, my cable box isn't working. Okay, well, what part of the cable box isn't working? Well, I turn it on and I don't see a picture. Okay, great. does it always happen when you first turn it on, or when you change inputs, or does it happen while you are watching the video? These are very important things to know, because just because the cable box goes out doesn't necessarily mean that there's a problem with the cable box. We may have a problem with something else if it happens when you first turn it on. Now, you are going to continue with this discussion?
I'm going to tell you the very first thing I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to call the cable company. Is there a known problem in this area?
There you go.
Because you and I also fight that one on a regular basis.
Yes, we do. Yep.
So the very first thing you want to do is check outages, and you can do that online with cable outage check at pick a zip code.
Yep.
And they will tell you pretty much, and you can look at bar graphs. Here are the problems in that area code. And the same thing happens with the internet,
Yep.
which should be very, very important to you as everything becomes networked.
Yep.
So that's 101. Don't jump into the system. Don't assume it's you.
Yep.
Very first thing you do is look at the cable company, because let's face it, they suck.
Yeah, yeah. And what was it? The very first episode that we ever released?
Facebook went down.
Facebook went down, which was
Wasn't us.
Nope.
Facebook went down a minute before we went on the air.
That was fantastic. Experts, thank you again for putting the comments into the chat. We really appreciate that. Anyone else who's watching, bring those questions into the chat section. We love to hear from you. What are you running into out in the field? This is a troubleshooting episode, so this is the perfect time to go ahead and let us know what problems you are seeing. Even if it has nothing to do with HDMI, we love hearing questions and fixing problems.
Okay, so I was watching TV last night.
Yep.
I get up the next day, get up this morning, I turn it on, my screen is black. What do I do?
Let's turn it off and turn it back on again and see what happens.
And it's still black.
Still black. Okay, next thing, let's unplug that HDMI cable from the cable box and plug it back in.
Ah, now I get a picture.
Okay, let's turn everything off and then turn it back on again.
I still get a picture.
Okay. All right, so now necessarily, here's what may be happening. We may have fixed the problem and it's never going to present itself again. Or, more likely, what's happened is we've now either fixed a temporary hot plug problem, or we have stripped capacitance on the HDMI cable on that bus just by disconnecting and plugging it back in, like you were alluding to before. So at that point, we may have just temporarily solved the overall problem.
And we did.
Yes. So.
Now let's discuss what that problem likely is.
Right.
Televisions now keep hot plug hot.
Yes.
And they do this because they assume that you're plugging everything directly into the television.
Yep.
You're not going through an extender, you're not going through an AVR, you're not going through a splitter, you're not going through a matrix.
Yep.
You got your cable box, you got your TV. And they keep these hot so that when you change inputs, it queues up faster.
Yep.
However, the problem with that is cable boxes, satellite receivers, a lot of set-top boxes, when the TV goes off, hot plug is not there.
Yep.
Excuse me, hot plug is there, but EDID's not.
Right.
So that periodic communication, who are you, what's your resolution, is gone. But the source, because it's still seeing hot plug, doesn't know to restart that.
Right.
So it just turns on, it doesn't know what to do, how to do it, when to do it, or where to do it.
Yep.
You unplug the cable, you plug it back in, there's a fresh hot plug. It's like, oh, hey, there's a new display. Let's start all over. Hi, I am.
Right.
Now, there is a solution to that one.
Yeah.
And this has become a fairly popular solution this past year.
Yes, it has.
Particularly in the Northeast.
And Texas.
And Texas. You beat me to it.
Yep.
That is the AIO 2.
Yep.
Now, the AIO 2 has on it, on the side,
ready?
Will you give me an overhead? Yes, sir. A little green Phoenix plug. Boy, this is still, I have the hardest time with this. This Phoenix plug ties to something with a relay on it.
Yes.
So when you turn the system off at night, you open the relay. That, for all practical purposes, unplugs that cable from the system.
Yep.
When you turn the TV on in the morning, you close that relay. Now, if you have a control system, Crestron, Control Force, Savant, URC, RTI, Logitech, I don't know.
No, Logitech does not have one. Yeah, they may be able to trigger some third-party one, but they don't have one built in.
And then you could also do it with Alexa or Google, because there's some relays available there.
Yes, yep.
Where you can open and close this, and that forces a reset. If you do not have a control system,
right,
we have a product called, and you'll put this in afterwards?
Yep.
In fact, we need to add that to our 10% off.
Yep. So it's the CS-IR Kit CCUS. So take a look at that piece. Really great thing about that is it is just a normal IR extender block and kit.
Connecting block.
Which allows you, of course, to receive an IR signal on a device somewhere else.
Do the included IR receiver.
Yep. And then extend that over to multiple IR outputs.
With four emitters included.
4 emitters included. It has a total of 6 outputs with 4 of them that are included. Now, the other thing that this has that, Brent, we won't go into the backstory, but essentially we found out we needed this device because of the AIO2. What it has on it is it has a single pole dual throw relay. So an A close, B close.
Or NO and
relay.
C for you old guys.
Right. And it has that built directly into the IR block.
And it's code learning.
So it can actually pick up that, you can say on an OEM remote of some kind. This is a bad example because this is the LG remote. But you can pick up any random remote. In fact, this is the remote that we use for our clock to tell us the time on it, to tell us the timer. But you can actually take any of the IR codes that's on any IR remote, learn those codes into the IR Kit CCUS, to be A close or B close.
And if you're doing a standalone URC, RTI, something like that, or Logitech,
yep.
What you can do is teach the TV discrete commands on and off to the CS-IR Kit CCUS, so that when you turn the TV off with the discrete off command, it opens the relay. When you turn the TV on with the discrete on command, it closes the relay. And that gives you the ability to do a forced hot plug reset whenever you need it.
Yep.
We also encourage you give the customer a help button if you have any kind of programmable remote that just opens and closes the relay, because if you have an Apple TV or DirecTV 4K unit, when you're going from 4K back to 1080p, it may not transition correctly.
Exactly.
That is another great tool to have in your kit, and the CS-IR Kit CCUS is reasonably inexpensive. We're not going to give you pricing.
Yeah, we don't know pricing. We're in tech support. We don't do pricing.
We don't do pricing, but it's something you should have in your toolkit, not just for this, but it also will do TV lifts, motorized screens, blinds, curtains, anything that operates on dry contact closure.
It's a great piece. We've released a couple of different episodes on how to actually utilize it.
He's got a great training one on it.
Yeah, there's some great videos on there. So go through our YouTube channel after today's episode and take a look at those great pieces. And I challenge you, if you pick one of these up with the 10% off, because of course we mentioned it today in today's episode. By the way, make sure you share this episode out to other people on forums and everywhere else, so that they can take advantage of that 10% off as well.
Between today and what date?
We're going to go with the end of the week.
Okay,
so
which is
Saturday.
Saturday. So that's
the
sales work on Saturday?
Well, the website's on Saturday, so I don't know.
Oh, Saturday, Sunday then. Sunday.
Reach out to your sales rep and make sure that you can get that discount on that. Now, when it comes to
right, because you have to talk to them directly.
Yep. So when it comes to the CS-IR Kit CCUS, it, like you said, it's a great piece because you can actually learn codes and use it anywhere. And I'm going to challenge you.
Come up with a good thing that we don't know.
A really good way to do that. And maybe we can sweeten the pot of that 10% off.
For the best?
For the best one, maybe. I got to get approval. This is off the cuff. I got to make sure it's okay. But I want to hear your stories about what you are using the CS-IR Kit CCUS.
And what you would use it for.
Or what you would use it for. I'll accept those as well. Yeah. So
we have talked about rise time issues, basic troubleshooting.
Yep.
The very first thing we do, again, is have a source that is not the customer's.
Right.
Make sure that the input to the TV is working. If it is not,
right.
Now we have to do a little bit more work, because we've had our source, we plugged it into the cable, we get no picture.
Yep.
Okay, now we've actually got to go to the TV and get behind it.
Right.
Because we need to take the source directly with the cable that you have in your truck.
Yep.
That you've tested.
Yep.
To try to that input.
Yep.
Does that input work? If that input works, okay, now we start going backwards. We need to look at the cable.
Yep.
Is it a copper cable? Is it an extender? Is it an AOC? Is it wireless? You got that call today.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we had actually that was an interesting call that we had about that. Now I'm going to recommend that with all the tool pieces that we're talking about, I actually recommend having a separate tool bag or tool kit.
A troubleshooting kit.
That's just for troubleshooting. have that Mi box in there. If you have the Meridio piece, put that in there. If you take an extra HDMI cable with you, that's your test cable. Put that in that bag.
A couple of USB power supplies.
A couple of USB power supplies. Bring an extension cord with you, a 50 to 100 foot extension cord.
Yeah, and maybe a couple of 12 volt power supplies also, because there's a lot of devices out there, particularly in the IR world,
Yep.
that need those power supplies, and the most likely thing to fail
Yep.
is the power supply.
Go onto Amazon and pick up the 12 volt power supplies that have the multiple ends on them, so that you can actually have those with you as well to test that. And again, your toolkit, you should be testing and grooming your toolkit once a month.
And don't forget your voltometer. Please have a voltometer.
See, I brought it out just for that.
Because we're going to ask, hey, go get your voltometer.
Yeah, and
oh, I don't have one.
Honestly, even if you think that it's not necessary for the type of job that you're on, there's things that we can do with a voltometer that doesn't just test, are you getting 12 volts? It's things that we can test for continuity and other pieces like that. So definitely bring a voltometer with you as well.
And make sure it's charged and has good batteries.
So, okay, so we're at the TV. We've tested it now with another source. We tested it with another cable, and we're not getting anything.
Okay, so now we know the TV inputs are good. Now we have to, and we actually tried the cable at the other end.
Yeah.
So now we have to look at the cable.
Yep.
Or the extender, or whatever the connectivity is.
Yes.
And particularly if it's an active cable, we have to look at that, because if there's a cable box in the system,
Yep.
which we've taken a lot of calls on because they tend to overvolt,
Yep.
we have to look at that possibility. Now, because of that reason right there, you and I both recommend conduit between the equipment location
Yep.
and the display.
And if for some crazy reason that you cannot put conduit into a location,
Put spares.
put spares there, a spare HDMI cable, put a spare
Category
cable,
and a coax.
And nowadays, honestly, put a spare fiber cable in there. Or, for that matter, run an AOC. Take an HDMI AOC, run that in the wall for your HDMI cable to begin with, and then if you run into a problem, you can always chop off the ends of the AOC, and now you've got 4 strands of fiber in
Now,
there.
you hear Adam and I talking about, we've had that experience together frequently.
Yeah.
Because we have. We were on a job site recently where they decided to add an exhaust fan
Yes.
to the chimney.
Yes.
Now, how are they going to do that? Because they can't get there.
Yeah, no, it's solid concrete construction. Unless they plan on drilling with massive boring machines through the concrete.
So, fortunately, we had extra wires. So we put a sensor at the firebox.
Yep.
Tied that into the Control 4,
Yep.
which then tied into the Vantage,
Yep.
which then tied into the fan on the ceiling, because they had power to the ceiling above the roof line.
Yep.
So we were able to do this plain and simply because we had extra wire.
Right. So not only can it come in handy for what you are working on and troubleshooting or fixing for your own AV system, but now
we can fix everybody else's
problem. We became the heroes for that situation. So definitely extra wire.
Yeah.
Troubleshoot before the troubleshoot. Before you even have to do any kind of troubleshooting,
No,
make
you got
sure you've
something
already
to
got
work
something
with.
else there.
Yeah, if all you need is an HDMI cable there, please don't only pull an HDMI cable there.
Seems like a best practice episode today, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, because it is.
It is. So, okay, Brent, so we've gone through, we've tested the TV. Let's say that everything's working fine there. We've now moved on to the next thing in line. Let's pretend, of course, that the next thing in line is an AVR.
Okay, so our cable's working.
Yep.
We're good to the cable.
Yep.
So our next thing is the AVR.
Yep.
Now, when you're looking at AVR, the questions you have to ask yourself, A, has there been a firmware update?
Yeah.
Do you have automatic firmware update turned on?
Yeah.
Now, it may not just be the AVR. There could have been a firmware update on your Xbox or your PlayStation or your cable box.
Or does it need a firmware update?
Yep, because that happens also.
Yes.
So, also check the inputs on the AVR.
Yep.
Check
same
the
process that you go through on the television.
On the television.
Do the same thing at the AVR. Check your inputs. Check the output. Again, if you have something like a Meridio testing kit or the Fox and Hound, use the analyzer. Put the analyzer on the output of the AVR.
Generator.
Nope. Put the analyzer on the output. Check and see if you have a picture. Put the generator on the inputs, on different
all the inputs,
all the other inputs, and go through each one. Leave the other input sources that you have, and move on from there. Same practice as testing what the TV inputs and outputs are, which of course the output, of course, is the display. But the inputs, same thing. You want to test those directly there, and with a known working device, with a known working cable. Oof. Got it?
Now, one of the things I've come across, particularly with Apple TV, when it's ready to update,
Yep.
and it tells you it's ready to update, if you don't do that, you get no output.
Well, you still have to have an
Right,
output,
but
but if it's doing the output, or if it's doing the update, there may be points where you
for
lose the
example,
output.
I've had guys where they're using the Apple TV for audio distribution.
Yeah.
If you don't have a display connected to it to know it's in update mode,
Yep.
or it needs an update,
Yep.
and you have to agree to it,
Yep. Yeah, because if you're using it for like the AirPlay functionality
Right.
of it, it may be asking for an update, and when you try to AirPlay to it, it just doesn't accept the AirPlay signal, or it may not even show up for AirPlay.
Right.
So that's where an analyzer will come in handy, because you need some way to see the picture of what's on that setup.
You have to be able to look at ins and outs on everything.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean carry a panel around with you.
Right.
Because that's honestly not that easy to do.
So here's an interesting thing. I had a client call in, or had a dealer call in, and we were going through some troubleshooting, and this was a couple months back, and they said that the television wasn't working, but and I asked them, do you have another display of some kind that we can test with? It had gotten to that point where we were going to try a different display, and he had said that no, but he does have his laptop. Now normally I say that doesn't work. Laptops only have an output HDMI. I was wrong. This one laptop, and I don't remember who it was. If anybody remembers what it is, it had an option where it could be in or out on the HDMI
Now,
cable.
I have on my Facebook, I have been seeing ads for a 15-inch 4K panel. Mm-hmm. Just 15-inch touchscreen 4K panel that has HDMI input on it. I think for $399.
Pretty cheap.
I mean, first off, it's 4K.
Yeah.
Now, it's not going to be 18 gig and all the other hoopla, but it is 4K.
Yeah.
And it's touchscreen. This is not a bad idea to have.
Mm-hmm.
You put it in a little iPad kind of bag.
Yep.
With the power supply, carry it around. Because not just for our world, but for video surveillance, things like that. Because in a lot of cases, the NVR, DVR is not direct connected to a display.
Right.
But you need it to be at least you did for setup.
Right.
Now it's not so much.
Michael Foster is asking.
Hi, Michael.
Hey, Michael. Thanks for checking in. He also asked us a question earlier. Is there a step-by-step document outlining the logical troubleshooting steps in the training? So,
I would love to say there is, but the guy who would be in charge of that.
All right, Brent, you're being put on the spot. So we had one that was released probably quite a few years ago that we had put out, and of course it's outdated. There's a lot of stuff because that was during the 1080p days.
Yeah, but you know what? That is a good thing for me to do this week.
Okay, all right. Now you're on air, so you're going to be held to it.
And God knows I hate typing, but
okay,
that is it. Yes, there may not be, but yes, there will be.
Okay. Now, the experts are saying most camera testers have an HDMI input. You are correct. If you have a camera or if you have one of the testers that's meant for like surveillance installations that has like a BNC input or even SDI, I think they may have an SDI input on them as well. Most of those have an HDMI input on them as well as like a LAN connection, so you can do on-VIF testing. And those do have some of those do have HDMI inputs on them. So definitely take a look for those as well. By the way, if you have a brand, I'm happy to hear that as well. Go ahead and put that
share it with us
in the chat section over there for us.
Any good tool that we have not mentioned or you would suggest,
yeah, please.
let us know.
Okay, Brent, so we've gone through the AVR. We found that the inputs and outputs are working, but I don't think we're done with the AVR.
No, because we have to get into settings.
Yes, we do.
Settings is very critical. And it's not just for settings, it's for updates. Now, here's the thing. Do not do an automatic update without doing a search.
Yeah.
Because updates can make your life miserable.
Find out on open forums, the AVS forums. I know they're not one of our favorites out there, but the AVS forums. Find out
Remote
from
Central,
Remote Central,
Integration Pros.
If you're on Facebook and the different Facebook Integration Pro groups that are in there, throw a quick little question up and say, hey guys, I saw an update for the Marantz SR 7000.
Should I?
40, whatever. Should I do the update? Go ahead and ask that out there because it's a great question, and most people that have done the updates will probably tell you flat out whether or not it's okay to do the update or not.
You want to believe that updates are safe.
Yeah, and Michael, you are right. He said this would be great to give to all of our techs in the field. As always, take some time, watch our videos that we have out there. We have other troubleshooting videos as well. And Brent, you are being held to it. You have to give us a thing. You put it out there. Well, I told you we were live.
Actually, I think what we'll do, we'll take it a step further. I'll get it typed up this week.
Yep.
But I think you and I should actually make
So we'll release the typed up version of it, and we'll do.
We should make a video on it,
and we'll do a video. So now we've gone into the settings, and now I think that we need to do something else before we go too far into the settings, because depending on what sources we have will depend on what settings we're going to make sure that the AVR is set to.
Absolutely,
and
because
on top of that, what type of AVR are we working with?
For example, not all AVRs allow you to distinguish between enhanced and non-enhanced inputs.
Per input.
Right, so if you have a device that's not enhanced, say a cable box that does not support HDR or deep color,
Yep.
and you have an AVR that's only global in its assignments,
Yep.
that can be a problem because that metadata is being pumped out every HDMI port.
Yep.
And if the source does not recognize the metadata,
Yep.
it will not work properly or at all. So there are times when you have to turn off enhanced even though you want it to make it work.
Keep going.
Okay.
Where is my
Some
remote?
AVRs do offer input options for each input for enhanced, non-enhanced.
Trying to see where this one is at. This is an older Denon. I believe this one might be under general and
It's not under HDMI? Okay.
Do they have a regular? They have an input
Try it under
option
inputs.
here. Input, source rename, hide sources, source level, input select. I think that's just going to let us switch between the different inputs. Speakers network. This was probably a bad example of it.
But this one does it. I remember this one doing it.
Yep, and I'll have to look and see which one it is.
By the way, this is what makes this fun. When you guys call us and we're walking through this with you online, we're Googling this as well.
We're working through it as well. Luckily, in some cases, we may have the device
video.
here. There you go. HDMI setup.
There you
on-screen
go.
display, 4K signal format. There it is. So 4K signal format. This one here actually has it there in an odd location. But this is what Brent's talking about.
This is global on this one.
This is global, which means all of the inputs are either enhanced or not enhanced, which unfortunately can be a problem in certain circumstances where I have an enhanced device, a Blu-ray player like our Oppo over here.
That you want.
That I want enhanced, or I may also have an old Scientific Atlanta
8300 that
1080i
isn't.
that is not. And so that can cause even more troubles because of EDID failures, because
But the additional metadata.
we have information on the EDID channel that the source is like, I don't know what to do with this, and it just doesn't do anything. It's a lazy worker.
And this is, last week we were talking about HLG.
Yeah.
This is where HLG would come in, but you don't have that option in the AVR setup.
Mm-hmm. So, we'll get out of that now. We'll leave it up. Okay, so we've gone through the settings and we've made sure that enhanced is set up correctly. The Sony is a really good one because it has separate inputs settings on that. We have all that set to the correct setting for where it should be. And so now it's still not working. But it's working on, let's back up. It's only not working on one source.
Okay.
So, in that source, let's pretend I'm going to put it through a kink in this. It's an Oppo media player, or an Oppo Blu-ray player, a 4K Ultra HD.
Okay. Then the next thing we have to look at: does your customer read AVS form?
Yeah.
Because if he does, some bright boy somewhere told him you need to set your unit at 4K 60 444 12-bit color.
Right.
No, you don't. These are actually fairly common problems.
Yeah.
And they're fairly common problems because why would you not want 4K 60 444 12-bit color?
Well,
Adam?
Brent, I'll tell you. Normally in an HDMI 2.0 world, which a lot of what we're talking about today is really applicable to both, but in a 2.0 world, you can't.
You can't carry 2 tons of fertilizer in a 1-ton truck.
Right. So what's happening there, of course, and we had an episode on bandwidth a while back, and we probably should do another episode on bandwidth because it's just so much information. But essentially what's happening there is we are exceeding the bandwidth limit of HDMI 2.0, which of course is 18 gigabits per second.
We're not even talking about the cables.
Yeah.
We're talking about the electronics in the devices.
Because, and very simply, we're finding now that, of course, cabling, it can handle much higher bandwidths than what the chipset is even capable of. And that's what we're finding out with that.
Well, let's take, for example, this new product.
Yep.
We got this in and we were super stoked.
Super excited.
It's like,
yep.
oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And we hook it up to an 8K TV and it's like, oh, this is going to be, what the?
Yeah. Yep.
But it's 8K TV.
We're getting 4K.
It's a 2.1 television.
60.
But.
Yeah, no.
But.
No. Unfortunately, that TV just could not handle the 4K 120. It just didn't have that as an option. It was an early 2020 display or even a late 2019 display.
Late 2019.
And so it unfortunately just didn't have that capability with it.
And until you dig deep into and this information is not always readily available online.
Right.
Because every manufacturer's not good. Manufacturers don't like sharing what they can't do.
Right.
They'll tell you what they can.
Yep.
Well, a good example, you and I both took a call from a guy in Texas that wanted to set something up for military gaming.
Yep.
Remember, he wanted to get those 43-inch TVs and the LGs with the A9s and say it does all this. Well, it doesn't on the 43. And it wasn't until you dug very, very, very far into the data, not the cut sheets, not the ad sheets. You had to get deep into it to find out it was never going to work because that set, even though it had the same processor, did not have the same features.
Right. So when we look
and that'd kill you.
When we look at troubleshooting, and honestly, when it comes right down to it, troubleshooting, whether it's HDMI troubleshooting, general or surveillance troubleshooting, general AV or audio troubleshooting or video troubleshooting, honestly, troubleshooting your own vehicle. The steps that are taken to get to finding out what's wrong with the device are usually about the same. The first thing that we need to look at is the infrastructure that's going on. In our world, of course, infrastructure meaning the cabling. If we're using extenders, what does your Cat 5 look like or Cat 6? How's the terminations on that connection?
We still take that call.
All the time. And at that point, making sure that the infrastructure also includes power. Making sure you have good grounds for all of your connections. Because very simply, the way that what can happen is a ground differential can build up. And because, especially if we have extenders or long HDMI cables, many times that distance, we are now on separate grounding planes inside of the house. Now, what will happen then at that point is you may get a buildup in differential on one ground side, and then on the other one it's much lower, and that buildup eventually would cascade and fall down through the normal channels that it would use for the ground. However, it may find that your HDMI cable, which is a brilliant ground, or your HD base T extender or whatever it may be, is using a great ground to go from the display to the source. And so now, instead of using the grounding that it's supposed to use, it's now shunting all of that differential down your video connection. So make sure you've got good grounds on that. That's a very important thing to do.
Let's talk about these.
Okay.
Now, you and I have both handled calls in the past week.
We are at an hour.
AOCs.
Yes.
I am a big fan of powering active cables outside of the HDMI bus.
Yep.
And here's why. When you look at an active cable, whether it's a fiber cable or a copper cable, it has to pull power from somewhere to control and power the electronics in it. On an optical cable, it is having to convert mechanical energy to light, and then from light back to mechanical energy.
Electrical, not
electromechanical.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's a pulse.
Yep.
Now, you can run it off the HDMI bus. Please do not do that.
Yeah.
Because it's drawing current at both ends, and the way the bus works is the input of the next device powers the output of the previous device.
We are finding more and more manufacturers of displays and AVRs and source devices are unfortunately not putting high enough power supplies in
Cutting corners to cut costs.
And they're trying to cut costs and make more money on it because, of course, cost of TVs. And if you go to Walmart right now or Best Buy or wherever else, you can find a 4K 60 5-inch television for under $300 or maybe under $400.
I think we had this discussion, it was under $3.
Ridiculously cheap right now, and they have to, of course, make their margins on it, which what they do is, of course, they begin to cut corners.
And where they can cut corners the easiest is in finite materials, which is power supplies.
Exactly.
Now, we very much encourage you to use external power on these. So you're not pulling off the bus. And that's great. So it's like, oh, I got a cable. Hey, there's a USB port on my television.
Yeah.
Don't do that, because most of those USB ports are only 250 mils, maybe 500, and if it's the Sony SS, it's 900 mils. Now, that's all well and good, but it still isn't an amp. And when you look at wall warts, do not believe the numbers. If it says 1 amp, assume it's a half an amp.
Yeah.
Unless it says Apple on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Just make sure you're good to go there.
So power is what we see go bad in active or optical cables comes down to one or two things. It doesn't work out of the gate.
Yep.
Because the glass is broken.
Yep.
Or it dies at 3 to 6 months.
Yep.
And the reason it dies at 3 to 6 months is power.
Yep.
Now here's the thing. When you're looking at power supplies, there's voltage and there's current. And we discussed this a couple of weeks ago, but basically, voltage is a carrier, current does the work.
Right.
And as a device heats up, it pulls more current. If there's not current available, the device works harder and tries to pull more current.
Yep.
Well, there's still not more, so it's working harder and trying to pull more current. Ultimately, it will wind up eating itself.
Yeah.
You'll get delamination of the circuit board, and it will slowly start to fail. So you put a power supply on it, it works for a while.
Yep.
And then it dies. You put a bigger power supply on it, it works for a while, and then it dies.
Yep.
Because it's literally eating itself up with what is effectively a cancer.
Yep.
Use power. Always use power. If you cannot do it with an outboard power supply, do it at the source side with an AIO2.
Yep.
If that's not available to you, some splitters will provide the power down the TMDS feeds.
Yep. So everybody, I think at this point we are now at an hour. I think we'll have to go ahead and call it for today. It's been a wonderful episode, a lot of information as always.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. If you all have more questions, of course, remember you can always contact us at our tech support line, which is 386-492-8584. You can actually see it down here in the corner. So you can call us there, or you can, of course, email us at adamr@metrahometheater.com or brentm@metrahometheater.com. And, of course, you can visit us on our website, metrahometheater.com. Like, share, subscribe, hit that bell notification to let you know that when we go live. And it lets us know that we're doing things that you all like and that is helpful to you.
That it matters.
And that it matters. So,
and if you really think the buy us lunch button's a good idea, please let us know.
So, of course, like we were saying before, if anything that was mentioned on today's show, any of our devices, of course, that were mentioned on today's show, until the end of the week are good for 10% off. So make sure you reach out to your rep for more information on that. And of course, that code is SHOW10%. Make sure you actually tell that to your rep to get some deals on that as well.
Yeah, and maybe the reps know. Or not.
We'll find out. So with that, everybody, thank you for checking in with us today. We really appreciate it. Let us know in the comments in the chat section how the show was for you. Remember also, let me know about the CS IR Kit CCUS. Where would you use an IR-enabled contact closure device in your projects? Or if you already have used it in your project, in an odd place,
Best application outside of what we discussed. And
I don't know what I can give away yet. I don't know if I can give anything away yet, but
I'm going to say...
let us know what you came up with, and we'll come up with something else to hand out for
We'll get you something.
things.
We'll get you something good. Maybe a CS-IR Kit CCUS.
Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. We'll find out. Okay, everybody. Thank you as always for checking in with us today.
Have a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you for that. Hopefully, it's a better one than last year. As always, we're always shooting for the better and better. And then at that point, Brent, let's sign off.
Don't cut your wires too short.
Reboot early.
Reboot often.
Turn off CEC.
And call tech support.
Call tech support.
I'm Brent.
I'm Adam.
We're out of here.
Guys, we'll see you next time. As always, be good. And we'll see y'all after whenever we can, I guess, at the next show, whatever else. Thanks, guys.